You're listening to Healthy House Calls with Angel, episode number 7, where we're talking about the lab report, the food, mood, and mental health connection, and how nutritional testing can change your health and change your life. Hello, welcome to Healthy House Calls with Angel. I am your host, Angel Shannon, giving you tips, tools, and holistic strategies to live a healthier life by intentional design. Join me as we explore the landscape of lifestyle medicine, offering practical tips that help you eat, sleep, move, and live better, and help you become fit and functional for life. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the show. Hello. Welcome to episode 7 of Healthy House Calls with Angel, and welcome to the Fit and Functional for Life community. I'm Angel Shannon, your host, and I want to welcome you to a community that believes that good health is so much more than just a normal physical and the weight on a scale. Good health is also the sense of harmony, balance, peace, purpose, and fulfillment we feel in our lives. Now, if you're curious about the connection between food, mood, and mental health, if you've had conversations with your own healthcare provider about feelings of sadness, difficulty sleeping, feeling burned out, feeling brain foggy, if you'd like to know what else you can be doing to improve your own mental health and well-being during this time of tremendous and ongoing disruption, then this episode is for you. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the lab report, into nutritional testing, and why it's so important for your mental health. And for me, why I believe nutritional testing is the biggest and most important missing link in healthcare today. So before we get started, if you're brand new to this community and to this podcast, here's what I'd like you to know. We are a community that believes first and foremost that health is the first wealth. And because of that, we declare our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being to be our single most important priority. We value knowledge, wisdom, and most importantly, personal transformation. We partner with our healthcare providers, but we take our health into our own hands by being informed and empowered, by taking action and holding ourselves accountable. We prioritize rest, movement, mindfulness, optimal nutrition, spiritual growth, and meaningful work that aligns with our life's purpose. We're saying goodbye to burnout. And in a nutshell, we are a community that desires to be fit and functional, not just for a day, not just for an event, but fit and functional for life. So let's get started. So today we're talking about food, mood, and mental health, and more specifically, these important things called neurotransmitters and hormones that make up our body's communication system. And why this is so important now more than ever before, because many people are struggling with the ongoing disruption, the ongoing change of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's impacting how well people are able to sleep, how well people are able to make important decisions, care for their families. Mental health is more important now, I think, than ever before. And in my practice, in my clinical practice, and in my coaching practice, I see so many people for mental health concerns. As a specialist in lifestyle medicine and integrative health, people find me because I tend to take the long view. I take a more holistic, whole person approach to healthcare. And what I've learned over the years is that no matter what the health condition may be, whether it's diabetes, hypertension, cancers, depression, anxiety, insomnia, an integrative approach to getting the condition under control allows us to look at the whole person. It allows us to move beyond the more conventional approach of simply just using medications to fix everything. Because the fact of the matter is, medications can only take our health so far. How we live our lives, how well we're sleeping, what we're eating, getting our bodies moving, all of those factors play a huge role in how the human body operates, how it functions, and plays a huge role in longevity, vitality, and healthy aging. So let's go ahead and jump right in. What many of my patients in my clinical and coaching practice learn is that our bodies are governed by a communication system of brain chemicals called neurotransmitters and hormones that allow signaling to occur throughout different parts of our bodies. And when this communication system is working well, our bodies and minds are working well too. But when this communication system is out of balance for any reason, when the signals are blocked, when they aren't getting through to their destination at the speed that they should be, or at the rate that they should be, we experience poor health. And this disruption of signaling can impact our mood and emotions, our mental clarity, our ability to focus, our memory, our stamina, our perception of pain, our ability to sleep well and wake up feeling refreshed, and so much more. So let's get into the background science. Let's time travel, as I usually say. And I'll start out by saying that it's no secret that food and nutrition impacts our health. We learn in early childhood that vitamins and minerals are important to our health and well-being. And most of us can agree that food can be the very best medicine or the worst poison. I think we can all agree that we feel significantly different when we eat a salad and drink lots of water versus when we're eating sugary cakes and pies and sodas and loads of processed foods that are high in sodium and preservatives and so on. I think we can all agree about that. And what makes today's world of mental health care so exciting is that we've figured this out. And that field of study is called nutritional psychiatry. We're learning now that there are many consequences of low nutrient density foods that ultimately provide less fuel for the brain. And we know that there are correlations between what you eat, how you behave, and how you feel. There are countless studies, just countless studies on the role of the gut, where digestion takes place, where nutrients are absorbed, and where healthy and not so healthy bacteria live. And how we understand how all of that too plays a role in how you feel, your level of motivation, how well you're able to focus. And what makes this knowledge so exciting is that now more than ever before, you can be a partner in every aspect of your healthcare. Gone are the days of just simply taking medication and hoping that it works. Gone are the days of paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for quick fixes that really don't work. Gone are the days of the one size fits all approach to managing healthcare conditions. You can now be a partner with your healthcare provider, even in the realm of mental health care. And you can feel empowered with solid science-based evidence to start making small but sustainable lifestyle changes to improve your own mental health and well-being. So, as I said, let's time travel back to biology and chemistry class for a couple of fun facts about the human brain. Your brain, which is part of the central nervous system, or CNS for short, consists of approximately 60 to 65% of fat, making it the fattiest organ in your body. And this is why healthy fats such as the omega-3s and omega-6s are vital for brain health. In fact, the brain has a higher fat cholesterol content than any other organ in your body and actually produces its own cholesterol to guarantee tight quality control. Okay. Number 2, here's another fun fact. Structurally, the brain is made up of 2 types of tissue that we call gray matter and white matter. Gray matter consists mostly of brain neurons or neuronal cells, and it conducts processes and sends information throughout the body. Gray matter makes up roughly 40% of the human brain. And then there's white matter, which is, on the other hand, made up of bundles. It accounts for the other 60% of the brain, and it's responsible for interpreting sensory information that comes from various parts of the body. The average human brain, this white matter and gray matter, weighs roughly about 3 pounds. And in texture, it feels sort of soft, slightly squishy, maybe similar to like Jell-O or gelatin. Number 3, what's important to know is that in addition to healthy fat, 75% of the human brain is made up of water, which means that even a small amount of dehydration, 2%, 3%, can have a huge impact on your memory, your emotions, your mood, your ability to focus and pay attention. And this is why staying properly hydrated is so important to mental health and cognitive function. So that makes for a good segue into brain function, because we just talked about structure, but let's get into function. Like anything else, your brain needs fuel in order to function, and it gets that through water, as I just said, but also through nutrition, through food. Your brain is the organ responsible for keeping an eye on what's happening with the nutritional status in your body. The nutritional status of the body is constantly being surveyed and assessed by key energy sensing regions in the body. And one of those regions, one of the most important regions, is something called the hypothalamus. Now, these regions of your brain are particularly focused on 4 important things. Number 1, feeding behavior, which means how often you eat, when you eat, the timing of when you eat. Number 2, fuel storage. Number 3, fuel mobilization, so getting fuel out and around through the body. And number 4, energy utilization, how energy gets utilized. In other words, your brain is so super smart. It wants to make sure that there's enough fuel being taken in, enough fuel being stored, enough fuel being moved around to keep all these engines going, these life-sustaining functions. And all of this is being tightly regulated and assessed and controlled by brain cells that we call nuclei. These nuclei are regulated by several important hormones, and those hormones are insulin, ghrelin, melanocortin, and leptin. All 4 of these hormones regulate feeding and energy balance, and that's something really important to know. Another important fun fact to know, the brain cleans itself. Not going to rely on us to clean it, not going to rely on another system to help it detoxify. The brain cleans itself through something called glial cells. Now, without getting too in depth with this part, the cleaning takes place, as you can imagine, during the time of sleep. Yes, when the whole body is shut down, when the system is shut down, when you are fast asleep, there's something called glial cells that actually expand and contract and move fluid through the brain so that particles can be removed, protein fragments can be removed, so that memory can be established. So all types of things are occurring during your sleep time in the brain, so that when you wake up, you are refreshed. The brain is cleared out and ready to go for today's requirements. Absolutely fascinating, isn't it? And it's believed, here's another fun fact, that the brain has over 85 billion neurons or cells. And remember that neurons are information messengers. They use electrical impulses and chemical signals to transmit information between different areas of the brain and between the brain and the rest of the nervous system. So it's like when you look up at the sky at night, on a clear night, and you see just like so many stars, you can't even count them. That's what it looks like in your brain. Just billions of neurons and cells. And the neurons communicate with each other by sending chemicals called neurotransmitters. They send those neurotransmitters across tiny spaces called synapses between the axons and dendrites of of adjacent neurons, and it's those neurotransmitters, how they're produced, how they're sent, where they're sent, is what makes nutrition so important. And it's what makes nutritional assessment and nutritional testing so important to mental health and cognitive function. So we've come full circle. And that's what we're going to talk about, is these important neurotransmitters or brain chemicals that are impacted directly by nutrition. Let's jump right in on this. The first neurotransmitter I want to talk about is serotonin. Serotonin, interestingly enough, is a neurotransmitter that's made from the essential amino acid called tryptophan. Now, there's an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase that converts tryptophan into 5-hydroxytryptophan. And you may see this on the supplement shelves at the store called 5-HTP. That's what that is, 5-hydroxytryptophan. And through another process called decarboxylation, 5-hydroxytryptophan is converted into 5-hydroxytryptamine, which is serotonin. You see how that works? Serotonin plays an important role in the regulation of so many bodily functions, so many physiological functions. And some of these functions include your mood, your social behaviors, sexual behaviors, your appetite, digestion, sleep, and memory. And this is why the level of serotonin in the extracellular space, or the space outside of the cell, has to be finely controlled and regulated. And imbalance in serotonin can lead to various problems, including anxiety, depression, poor mood, sexual dysfunction, compulsive behaviors, and cognitive deficits. Cognitive meaning memory and learning. Okay. Serotonin plays an important role in the regulation of thyroid function. And you know that your thyroid is your body's main engine for metabolism and energy regulation. Another important fact about serotonin is that it is a precursor of melatonin. And you remember that melatonin is the hormone and neurotransmitter that helps us get to sleep. Most people think of melatonin, when they hear melatonin, they think of sleep immediately. But melatonin has many other diverse functions that regulate circadian rhythm, energy metabolism, plays a very, very important role in the immune system. It also inhibits oxidative stress, participates in the cellular aging process. Melatonin is very, very important for cognitive health. Now, dietary intake of tryptophan is important, but for the production of serotonin. But what's more important to know is that the tryptophan conversion that I described just a moment ago, that tryptophan conversion with tryptophan hydroxylase and the conversion into 5-hydroxytryptophan, and then that next conversion into 5-hydroxytryptamine, that whole process is very, very dependent upon vitamin B3 and vitamin B6. They are cofactors. And by cofactors, I mean what I just said, that they are necessary for the conversion process to take place. So if serotonin is connected to melatonin production, then it makes sense that vitamin B3 and B6 are also important for melatonin and getting to sleep. And for all of those processes that I just said, melatonin is responsible for, not the least of which is important now these days, of immune function. So you see there's this upstream and downstream effect. So serotonin was the first neurotransmitter. Let's move on to the next two really, really important neurotransmitters, brain chemicals, glutamate and GABA. Glutamate is the excitatory neurotransmitter. In fact, it's the major excitatory transmitter in the brain, in the body. It's the most abundant free amino acid in the brain. And it really is at the crossroad between multiple metabolic pathways. It plays a really important role in fundamental brain functions that include neuroplasticity. So I'm talking about learning and memory. It's also important for neuron repair. Okay. Now, without getting too deep in the woods here with this, I just want to say that dietary glutamic acid is transformed into glutamate. So if you ask me, how do I get glutamate? Well, that's made from the dietary intake of glutamic acid. All right. And you'll find glutamic acid high in foods that have a high protein content. So like meats, seafoods, soups, seaweeds, cheeses, fish sauces, fermented beans. You can find high content of glutamic acid in those foods. You may also be familiar with glutamate from something called MSG, or monosodium glutamate, which is the sodium salt of glutamic acid. And it's a white crystalline solid, usually used as a flavor or taste enhancer in food. But the thing that's important to know about glutamate is that too much of it and too little glutamate are equally harmful. Excessive glutamate and excessive activation of glutamate receptors in the brain create too much excitatory activity. In fact, it's referred to as excitotoxicity. High levels of glutamate can cause changes in mood, notoriously anxiety, restlessness, and low levels can cause fatigue, difficulty focusing, memory problems, problems with concentration, and nutrients, here we go again, that are important for glutamate production: vitamin B1, vitamin B3, vitamin B6, and manganese. Okay. Now let's talk about GABA, which is just the opposite of glutamate in terms of activity. GABA, or gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA for short, is an amino acid that serves as the primary inhibitory neurotransmitter in the brain and major inhibitory neurotransmitter in the spinal cord. So what does that mean? GABA is one of the main neurotransmitters that regulates mood, particularly anxiety and states of hyperactivity. The other thing that's interesting about GABA is that GABA is important to perception of pain and pain control. And many times in my clinical practice, I've used GABA for two things, to knock out two birds with one stone: pain and anxiety. Now, high levels of GABA can result in extreme fatigue, and then low levels can create symptoms of anxiety, hyperactivity, trouble sleeping. And you may ask, how do we get GABA? Well, the answer to that is glutamine. Glutamine makes glutamic acid, and glutamic acid makes GABA. And once again, the nutrient that plays a big role in that conversion process is B1. So you see how these B vitamins are showing up again and again. Let's talk about a few more that are equally important. Three that I want to highlight: dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And what do they all have in common? They have in common an amino acid called tyrosine and its precursor phenylalanine. Now, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine all exist along something called the catecholamine pathway. And for those neurotransmitters, they're well known to be involved with energy, fatigue, thermogenesis, motivation, and depression, but they also play a role in pain management. So let's take a dive into dopamine. Dopamine is what we call the chemical messenger because it's used to send messages in between the nerve cells. We also call it the pleasure chemical because it mediates pleasure in the brain. It's released during pleasurable situations, and it stimulates our brain to seek out more pleasurable activities. So think of the things that bring pleasure for most of us: food, sexual activity, maybe running, jogging, things that we enjoy. There are also certain drugs of abuse that stimulate the release of dopamine in the brain. And this is why they can be highly addictive, because they trigger that pleasure center of the brain. But dopamine has a lot of functions in the brain, including important roles in regulating behavior and cognition, motor activity, as I mentioned, motivation and reward. It's involved in attention and learning and in sleep. Low levels of dopamine can cause difficulty with focus and motivation, can cause food cravings, problems with libido, as you can imagine. And because of its role in movement and activity, low levels of dopamine can cause movement disorders like Parkinson's disease. Now, where do we get dopamine? As I said, from the amino acid tyrosine. And tyrosine is found in soy products, chickens, turkey, fish, peanuts, almonds, avocados, bananas, yogurts, cottage cheeses, lots and lots of different foods, in pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds. But here again, in order for tyrosine conversion to happen, we need vitamins B1, B3, and B6 as cofactors. So you can be eating all of the tyrosine that you want, but once again, we need, for the sake of conversion of tyrosine into dopamine, we need those critical vitamins B1, B3, and B6. Let's jump into norepinephrine, another one that's super important. Norepinephrine is similar to epinephrine, and it too is synthesized or made from the amino acid tyrosine in the adrenal glands through a number of enzyme and enzymatic reactions. And when it's released from our adrenal glands into the bloodstream, norepinephrine functions like a hormone. When it's released in the CNS or the central nervous system, norepinephrine acts as a brain neurotransmitter. Now, here's what's important to know is that norepinephrine is tightly connected to our fear-related responses. In fact, norepinephrine is involved in the fight or flight response of the sympathetic nervous system. So we're talking about when there's stress, when there's something emergent, norepinephrine kicks in, raising the heart rate, raising the blood pressure. We've got glucose being released so that we can have energy for the brain. Okay. And just like the next one, epinephrine, that I'll talk about in just a moment, norepinephrine requires vitamins B1, B3, and B6 for conversion. So you're starting to see a pattern here, right? Now, high levels of norepinephrine can be associated with anxiety, hyperactivity, elevated blood pressure, hot flashes, migraine headaches. And conversely, low levels of norepinephrine are also associated with difficulty focusing, low energy, depression. Okay. Let's move into epinephrine. And you may know of epinephrine as adrenaline. So epinephrine is another important brain chemical that's derived from, you guessed it, tyrosine, an amino acid. And when we're talking about amino acids, remember, we're talking about proteins, right? So epinephrine is involved, again, just like its partner norepinephrine, it's involved in the fight or flight response. And that comes up when we have actual or perceived stress, actual or perceived threats. And epinephrine causes a signaling process to occur. There's danger, our brains need to know it, and they need to kick us into action. One of the places where epinephrine has a really big effect is in the liver, because what happens with epinephrine, along with another hormone called glucagon, is the breakdown of glycogen in liver cells. So glycogen is a form of energy that's stored in the cells. So when we have an emergency, when there's stress, when the body needs to kick into action, epinephrine is released, glucagon is released, and that becomes our fuel source. As you can imagine, high levels of epinephrine have been associated with insomnia, anxiety, blood sugar levels, okay? Low levels can be associated with lack of focus, difficulty getting up enough energy, difficulty regulating blood sugar balance, I've also found in my practice that there can be some association with difficulty losing weight. But once again, the more important discussion to be had here is that the nutrients that are responsible for the conversion of tyrosine for epinephrine are vitamins, you guessed it, B1, B3, and B6. So you can see now that the B vitamins play a really crucial role in mental health for the conversion of important amino acids into neurotransmitters. B1, which is thiamine, B6, pyridoxine, and B9, folic acid, and B12, which is cobalamin. But that's what makes nutrition so important. And what's equally important nutritionally is antioxidants and their role in mitigating oxidative stress. Because I don't want to just talk about the B vitamins here. I really want to hone in on nutritional testing and what is included with nutritional testing and how that relates to mental health. Antioxidants have a major role in mitigating oxidative stress, in cleaning up our exposure to environmental toxins, in controlling inflammation. And we know that inflammation plays a major role in cognitive health and conditions like dementia. In functional nutrition testing, when we're assessing antioxidants, we're looking at things like alpha lipoic acid, vitamin A, and the contributing biomarkers, which are cysteine and taurine. We're looking at vitamin E, glutathione, coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10, which is structurally similar to vitamin E. And CoQ10 plays a crucial role in generating cellular energy, and it's really very beneficial to heart health and the cardiovascular system as a whole. Now, another benefit of functional nutrition testing is the opportunity to see what's happening in the gut, because again, we know there's a direct connection between the brain and the gut. And we can find functional imbalances when we look at biomarkers on the nutritional testing panel. Biomarkers like phenylacetic acid, which can reveal malabsorption, how well your body is absorbing nutrients. We can look at markers like benzoic acid and hippuric acid, both of which can reveal bacterial dysbiosis or an imbalance in gut bacteria. So you don't necessarily have to do a stool test. You can do some nutritional testing and look at specific biomarkers that will point you in the direction of what may be happening in the gut. And that's what's so super helpful, because again, functional nutrition, functional medicine is really about root cause investigation. It is not about just prescribing something or saying, just take some probiotics or, take these vitamins or take these supplements. No. Functional nutrition and functional medicine are about getting to the root cause of what is happening and making targeted, specific, personalized recommendations based upon what is being reported by the person as well as what is being reported in the lab report, what we're talking about today. So let's talk about how functional nutrition testing works. Now, in my clinical and coaching practice, it's super easy. It involves a testing kit that's done from the convenience of your own home. There are different types of tests that you can use, just a pinprick of blood from your own home. And then there are other testing kits that involve going to the lab to get a blood draw, just as you would with a regular, trip to the lab. And for a really robust and comprehensive test, it would involve a urine sample as well as the blood sample. Those things are obtained, shipped off to the lab, and a couple of weeks later, you've got some really, really hearty, valuable results. Now, I would be remiss if I did not answer the one question I know you're likely to have, and that is, when should nutritional testing be considered? Great question. And that's why I think the World Health Organization really nails it here in their report that was put out a number of years ago that every country in the world is affected by one or more forms of malnutrition. And what's helpful in their report is that they define malnutrition in three broad groups of conditions, because most of the time when we think of malnutrition, we think of someone being underweight, right? But malnutrition also includes micronutrient related malnutrition, which can occur from inadequate, intake of or excessive intake of vitamins or minerals. Really pretty straightforward. So malnutrition is not just being underweight. It can really include, and it does include, deficiencies or excess of important micronutrients. It also includes being overweight, obesity, and diet-related non-communicable diseases. And this is where lifestyle medicine really is important, because we know what contributes to heart disease. We know what contributes to stroke and diabetes and even some of the cancers. We know the role of inflammation as a result of poor glucose control. We know the role of heart disease as it relates to high levels of cholesterol, large particle cholesterol in particular. We know the role of nutrition in stroke, and unregulated or unchecked hypertension as a result of excessive sodium intake, excessive fluid volume, and such. And this is why proper nutrition and proper nutritional assessment is so key to disease prevention, and why it's central in functional medicine and lifestyle medicine as well. Nutrients are necessary to feed every cell in the body and to ensure that every body system is functioning properly. And testing can help any clinician and any patient gain a better understanding of how nutritional imbalances can be impacting their health. There's just no denying that. And certain conditions or certain dietary, genetic factors, lifestyle factors may in fact predispose a person to having some nutrient imbalances. We also know that certain medications can contribute to poor absorption of important nutrients as well. I'm thinking about statins and CoQ10 here. So, and some of the research on that. So it's important to know that there really is no condition in which nutritional testing is not of value. So I want to bring this home and summarize that functional nutritional testing is a far more comprehensive approach to disease management, and especially mental health. It can help pick up subtle imbalances that are just not available on standard laboratory tests. And the functional nutrition testing measures different profiles that help determine your body's need for certain minerals, certain vitamins, antioxidants, and fats. Functional nutrition testing can help give insight into certain toxins and toxic elements from air, from water, from the environment, such as styrene in those takeout containers that we're all getting our food in these days, and MTBE, which is an additive in gasoline. Your body needs to be detoxifying those things. And when it's not, it can make all the difference in your ability to focus, in your mood, how well you sleep, and in your overall health. Can help you identify these things so that you can make the simplest of lifestyle adjustments. Something like water filtration can make all the difference in how you feel. And with these results, clinicians can help design recommendations that are specific to you, not that one size fits all approach. And what we call it in my practice is test, don't guess, because even if your diet is healthy, even if you're eating all the right things at all the right times, every day, 7 days a week, 24, hours a day, 365 days a year, the question is, how can you be sure that your diet is enough? What if you're not digesting appropriately? What if you're not absorbing nutrients? What if you're taking medications that are competing with important nutrients? How would you know that? And as we said earlier, even the mildest nutritional deficiencies can contribute to a wide variety of health problems and chronic conditions. There's that old saying, food is medicine and you are what you eat. And it is a fact. So nutritional testing helps you and your healthcare provider take out the guesswork. No more fad diets. No more getting on Instagram and seeing what the latest celebrity said everyone should be doing. No more of that. No more spending money on supplements that you either, one, don't need at all, or two, supplements that aren't even working. In my practice, I can't even count, especially now, the number of people who are talking about vitamin D, rushing out to buy vitamin D, but never really know if it's actually working. First of all, you have to even know what your vitamin D level is. 2 different forms of vitamin D. How much should you be taking? How often should you be assessing whether or not the form that you're taking is actually even working? And if it's not working, is there a SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, that's interfering with the absorption of vitamin D? If there's one thing that I've learned in over 27 years of clinical practice, it's the importance of the fingerprint. And the fingerprint is a metaphor for the fact that we are all very, very different. We're unique. There is no one size fits all approach. There are some things that are true universally, but there are some things, many things that are more specific to you. Okay. And I know through my years of clinical practice and coaching, things like chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, heart disease, many of these conditions can be significantly improved, not only with the right supplementation, but with lifestyle changes. With the right vitamins and minerals and supplementation, we can improve metabolism, we can stabilize blood sugar, we can reduce inflammation. More importantly, we can protect our brains. Our brain is our biggest and most important asset. And we can use nutrition now to positively impact our mood for the better. Even athletes now know that they can optimize their performance through targeted nutritional therapy. And best of all, I think the best part of it all is that this can be easily woven into the healthcare that you're already receiving with your healthcare provider, and it is far more affordable than most people even think. Taking care of yourself now at the cellular level, at the most fundamental level, will pay off in the long run. It is truly money in the bank, and there's no arguing that. And so I want to wrap up this episode and bring this home by saying what I said in the very beginning, that if you are curious about the connection between food, mood, and mental health, if you've been having conversations with friends and loved ones about the pressure of this ongoing pandemic, the mental stress, the feeling of, burnout, brain fog, difficulty focusing, and if you want to take a more active role in your own health, if you want to be a partner with your healthcare provider, if you want to really level up, one of the things I know for sure is that one of the most powerful ways to optimize your health is through nutrition. And that is where functional nutritional testing can be of significant value to you. I'd love the opportunity to talk with you about that. So jump on over to my show notes, use the link in the show notes to schedule a time to just talk more in depth about how functional nutritional testing can be of value to you. Use the link in my show notes to get on my mailing list, my newsletter, Healthy House Calls with Angel, to get my, email blasts about nutritional testing, but also about key supplementation that we know by scientific evidence is important to so many different metabolic processes in your body and in your brain. That is free information. And what I always say is that good information never costs you, it pays you. It's money in the bank. Lastly, I'd love to say and extend to you the opportunity to get in on our fall special, our fall back to wellness special, and joining the Fit and Functional for Life community. We are a community that is putting all of this valuable information into practice. We are challenging ourselves this fall with, a fitness challenge, but also with a simplicity challenge. We're focusing on burnout and the role of burnout and clutter, both physically and mentally in our lives. And we've got a fall simplicity challenge going on to take our practices put our practices into place so that we create more simplicity in our lives, both through physically as well as mentally, to reduce the amount of stress that we have in our lives, reduce the amount of mental and physical clutter, so that we can live healthier lifestyles. I know no other way to say it than that. So I'd love for you to get in on our fall special for joining the Fit and Functional for Life community. That information is in the show notes. So I hope this episode of the Lab Report, Food, Mood, and Mental Health has been helpful for you. I would love to hear from you. If you follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter, please send me a message. Let me know what you think about this episode. Let me know if it's been helpful for you. And let me know if there's something else you want me to talk about in this podcast, because it really is about changing your life, not just your symptoms, and changing your life through the power of lifestyle medicine. And so that's it for this episode of Healthy House Calls with Angel. I hope this has been helpful for you. Remember that information presented in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always discuss your health concerns, physical and mental health concerns, with your own professional health care provider. Until next time, be well and be good to yourself. And as I always say, never, ever, ever, ever be afraid to be amazing. Take good care. Thank you for tuning in to Healthy House Calls with Angel. I hope today's episode leaves you feeling inspired, motivated, and empowered to live your best life by applying the practical tools of holistic lifestyle medicine to eat, sleep, move, and live better. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you receive this podcast. Check in for show notes and share this podcast with friends. If you'd like even more tips in your inbox, subscribe to my newsletter, Healthy House Calls with Angel, by using the link in the show description. Until next time, be well and be good to yourself.